In real estate, it's critical because everything is time sensitive. You've got a contract, you've got specific dates you have to meet. So you almost have to look at your process, almost as a mandatory thing, to make sure you're meeting those timelines and the contractual obligations. Time is of the essence. And it could cost a lot of money, not only to you, but to your client.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. In this episode, we sit down with a woman whose career is the definition of reinvention, resilience, and results. She brings a rare trifecta to the real estate table: 30 plus years in corporate leadership, decades of real estate investment experience, and hands-on expertise in construction and remodeling business owner. She is not just selling homes, she's building them, transforming them, and consulting clients every step of the way with an eye of an investor and the heart of a trusted advisor. From learning into her bilingual roots to serve Spanish-speaking buyers, to leading complex renovation projects with Island Construction and Remodeling, she has built a reputation for precision, professionalism, and passion. As a broker associate with Align Right Realty Horizons and their 2024 Agent of the Year, she is now inspiring both clients, colleagues, with her commitment to military relocation, luxury homes, and neighborhood revitalization. Fluent in Spanish, sharp in strategy, and fearless in execution, she is the voice worth listening to. Today, she shares how her background in Six Sigma business consulting and real estate investments converge to help people make smarter, stronger, and more profitable moves in life. Let's welcome Cindy James to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy.
No problem. It does pretty good, though.
It does.
It would take a while to put all that in there, but it makes a great intro. I get a high off reading it, actually. And then listening to it later, what I sounded like. But I appreciate you coming down. And the more I dug into, because you haven't had this long 20-year real estate, but you've been involved in doing these things, the investment, you've got the construction and renovation company going there. And I think it's important, because every agent that I've had on comes from a different background. You've got corporate, you get that leadership background, but that construction and renovation, which I think is the untapped right now. I don't think as a lender, we talk about renovation loans all the time, but people are not taking advantage of them and what they can do with some of these gems that they find, throughout any region really in the country. These homes, they got the address, they got the location, but maybe it is 20, 30 years old, maybe, or whatever it is that needs to be done, so renovation. But that's what I was like, I got more excited the more I was reading about you and what was going on. But welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So tell us a little about Cindy. I always like to start off with the easy question. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit, where did the Spanish and the bilingual come in? But what was young Cindy, when she was 18, 19 years old, what were you thinking about doing? What was your career aspiration?
So I was born in Puerto Rico. Both of my parents are 100% born and raised in Puerto Rico. Moved away when I was, 2-3 years old to Germany. From Germany, we moved to Kentucky. I was in Kentucky for kindergarten, first grade, then Georgia for 2nd through 12th, and then I moved to Jacksonville.
Service,
my dad was in the Army.
Okay, yeah.
Retired military. Yes, He was a drill sergeant, and that has played tremendously in how I operate. Because he would bring drill sergeant-ish stuff to the house, right?
Yes.
So, we were like, boom, boom, boom. We were one of those little soldiers. But
did you have Saturday morning inspections?
We had Friday night inspections.
Friday night inspections.
We would come home on Friday after school. We all had our chores, and and I can't tell you how many times I would come home from school and all my clothes from my drawers in my bedroom were piled up in the middle of the room. I shared a room with my sister.
Right.
So he would come look through the drawers. If they were a mess,
the clothes weren't folded right.
They weren't. And I promise you, the one suffering right now is my husband of 27 years, because I've got all the blue socks lined up, all the white socks. I got all his white shirts, short sleeve, long sleeve. It's like OCD.
That is great.
I've had to learn to let go of some of that over 27 years because my husband is total 180 from that. But
so if Dad was off on Friday, you knew this was coming.
White glove, my sheet from the bed, perfect little angle. but and I was super grateful, I'm going to say. I hated it at the time, but so grateful for my dad being that way. But both of them spoke Spanish. Again, like I said, it was fluent. It was their first language. So we would go to school, speak English. We'd come home, and it was all in Spanish. And again, super grateful for that as well, because at 18, I graduated from high school, and I decided I'm going to Jacksonville. Moved to Jacksonville, started at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida at the time. It's Florida Blue now. And I had no experience. I had no education, no college. And they hired me because I spoke Spanish. So super grateful. My parents made me learn Spanish. But I was there for about 30 years. I bought my first home. It was a new construction when I was 22. And I love the process. I love seeing how it goes from dirt to this home. I bought my real estate investment property. I lived in it. We'll never do that again. I lived in a home that my husband and I actually renovated it. We ended up selling it.
What do they call that? The Burr method, right? You buy, renovate, and then
rent.
Either refinance the cash back out of it or move on to another house. Yeah.
It's recommended to hold for at least 3 years and rent during that time. But it's a great model. And so then I kind of fell in love with the whole renovation aspect. So after 30 years in corporate, an opportunity presented itself where I want to move from Riverside to the beach. And I had been in corporate for 30 years. The last 10 years, I was a Six Sigma process improvement person, which I love process improvement. I love pulling a team of people.
That's what I should be hired for. I always thought people need to hire me for process improvement. I think that's a skill and that people don't have. And it's probably one of the reasons why you're having success in real estate, because you're able to put yourself in the shoes of the operator. Right? Is that to me, that's really how is someone going to, if someone comes onto this website, if someone does this, what are they thinking? What's their next step? What are they, because I see that, we see in everyday life. Me and my wife are probably really good. We met at work, so we always are talking shops more. But when we go to a restaurant or go into really anything and see how their processes are set up.
Yes.
And we're like, is someone actually watching this?
That's right.
Because the really good companies, they're all over that, right?
Yes. So streamlining is huge. To me, when you own a business, and I remember when I first started with construction, my contractor, CBC, the first thing I did was, let's map out the process. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. He goes, what? I said, let's map out a process. And I tried to explain to him. And he goes, oh, no, construction.
Little project management going in here? Yeah.
Construction is a different animal. I said, no, it's not. And I still have the photos. That's the funny thing. Every now and then I run into it. Here I have these stickies. I mapped out the process, and then you've got your rework loops, decisions. Well, how do you remove those rework loops? Because those reworks are the ones that's costing you money as a business owner. Right? And then defects. How do you eliminate defects? The defects at the end of the day is what makes your client, your customer, unhappy. They don't want defects. They want the happy path. How quickly can we get through this process with as smooth of a process and as accurate a process as possible?
Right.
And you can apply that to anything.
Yep.
I don't.
100%.
Everything is a process. We just don't, like you said, we don't stop long enough to see it, to watch it, to actually map it out. We just go day to day doing what we do, and little things kind of come in play. But you never go back and reevaluate your process.
Yeah.
Like, why are we even doing that? That doesn't even make sense. Well, back then we needed to, for whatever the process is, and we just never cut it out.
I think if people really sit down and map out why some companies are so much greater than others, we could think of, if you don't know Amazon's name, but I guarantee if we dug into their processes and how they set up their warehouses and how, every step from you and I clicking the button, what happens that we never see from start to finish, and how they're delivering that package to us in, a really short period of time. That is constantly being analyzed, how they can do it bigger, better, faster.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And in real estate, it's critical because everything is time sensitive, right? Everything, we've got a timeline, you've got a contract, you've got specific dates you have to meet. So you almost have to look at your process, almost as a mandatory thing, to make sure you're meeting those timelines and the contractual obligations. Time is of the essence. And it could cost a lot of money, not only to you, but to your client, if you fall out
Oh,
of contract.
I love this
right?
topic. You know, let's drill down on this. I love this.
Yes.
Okay. Because the end goal is, right, we have this, what do we want to achieve? Obviously, a closing. That's a no-brainer. That obviously has to happen no matter what. But what really is the end goal as a real estate agent through that transaction besides the actual closing? What would you, if I'm asking you, what is the end goal that you want to achieve at the end of that 30, 45, 60 days? Who knows, 6 months if you're with a
Right.
client that long.
So to me, my end goal is not only get to closing, but get to closing where everyone still has all their hair. They're not pulling out their hair through the process because it's not.
Right. And hating you for it.
And that's correct. And hating you for it. So just this weekend, we ran into a glitch on a contract, and I typically like working through issues if I don't have to engage my client behind the scenes, if at all possible, especially when it's a contractual thing, not necessarily something going to impact them per se. I don't like engaging them in the things that I as a realtor should be doing. So at the end of the day, I want my clients to feel like it was an easy process, a simple process, something that they feel very well educated in the process. I do spend a lot of time on education, especially first-time home buyers. They have no clue what's next. They have no clue what it entails. So I would say a seamless, stress-free, easy process in that to achieve their goal of buying or selling their home.
Right. And I think you described, they still have their hair. They have not, aged in that part. But, and now you mentioned something there. You do a lot of the things behind the scenes, which is top agents are doing, right? They're cleaning toilets before you're going in and straightening out the house before the open house or whatever type of thing. They're doing those things and not really, you're not going, hey, Mr. Client, I'm cleaning your house right now, because you just do it, right?
Yes.
But with the new NAR stuff in the buyer broker agreement and so forth, I think there is a gap of what the agents are doing. I think the bad language, or the agents have got a bad rap. I think, bad agents have got a bad rap. If people know good agents, they know that, someone like yourself, what you're doing. But the average customer doesn't know all those things that you are doing behind the scenes. And I think social media is probably a great way for agents to actually put out there, hey, I'm cleaning this person's house, right? I'm emptying out the garage. They've already left. The new owners are supposed to be moving in here in a couple hours, and there's a bunch of trash in the garage. I mean, you guys are doing that stuff. And I think the average consumers don't see the value in it, and you don't have time to call somebody. They're moving in here in 2 hours. You don't have time, and then it's money out of your pocket or money there. You're not, all these things are going on. And so I just, when you said that, it just made me think about it. We still want to let the consumers know in some way, shape, or form, great agents are doing these things behind the scenes. We don't want to hide it too much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a very accurate statement. So while something that I'm doing behind the scenes is occurring, I just go do it.
Right.
After the fact. And I'll give you an example. So I had, this is funny. So I had a client who was moving to Arkansas. We had sold his home. We were going to do a remote closing at his home. I've worked with this person before because I actually sold him the home. So I knew, how he had a lot going on.
Right.
So I got there about 30 minutes before we were supposed to sign. I walk in. Now keep in mind, we're signing. He's supposed to be vacating later that day. There were maybe 4 boxes sitting packed. Nothing else had been moved.
Not 4 boxes left.
No.
They're about 4 boxes full of whatever amount of boxes.
That's correct. So I was like, wow. So we went ahead and did the closing, and I said, let me help you pack. No, you got your little dress on, you're this, you're the whatever. And I said, I really don't mind. I do not mind. No, I'll handle it. I said, okay, so we're supposed to be out by 5 o'clock. So I will contact you or keep me posted on how you're doing. So again, knowing how things, I got there at 4, an hour early. I got there at 4. He was just leaving to get the U-Haul truck. And like, oh no. So,
if this hasn't happened in your real estate career yet, it will happen.
It will happen. I was like, okay. And of course, I'm like, okay, problem solve. How are we going to solve this problem, right? So I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to divide and conquer. I said, you go get the U-Haul. I'll stay here with your daughter, and I will finish. And he had done quite a bit. There was like trash bags lined up on the side of the living room. There was still some stuff that needed to be packed. And again, me being process-oriented, I said, you do this. How about you do this? And I'm going to do this. We'll reconvene at such and such a time. Okay, so he left. By the time he got back, that whole house had been finished being packed. I contacted a friend of mine, my contractor actually. I said, hey, I need your help. Can you come bring your trailer with you? And that's the other thing, having resources readily available, which construction has.
People who can act on a moment notice,
That's
those really good friends that'll come get you in the middle of the night. You need a few of those.
I'm like, I know someone that has a dumpster. I know someone that has a flatbed. I know someone. So he came. We ended up, I did pack. I asked the daughter, okay, this goes. Does this go? No, you can trash that. So anyways, by the time the dad got back, everything was packed, ready to go. And then,
because that was that U-Haul pickup probably took a couple hours. Yeah, easily.
So he said, the people are coming to help me put this into the truck. I said, fine. I said, so I'm going to head back because my contractor had to get back. So into Jacksonville, this is in St. Johns County. So anyway, so we go down there and I call and I said, hey, how's it going? Oh, I need about another hour. Okay. So he then, the homeowner tells me,
people
hey,
just purchased the home.
On the road. I'm sorry, the one selling the home. Sorry, my seller. He says, we just got on the road, headed to Arkansas. I left the key. Okay, so my husband, I told my husband, can you come with me? Because something tells me I might need your help. So anyways, we get there. And I started in one corner of the house and just walked my way all the way around. The first thing I found was his wallet. The seller's wallet. I'm like, okay, this is not that. So my husband calls him. I follow through the rest. I was like, okay, this is actually really good. I opened the garage door.
It's full.
It's full of garbage, of things they were just going to get rid of. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had a Tahoe. We packed up as much as we could in that Tahoe. Fortunately, the purchaser was an investor. So I contacted the investor and I said, hey, listen, so here's what's happening.
Luckily,
there's stuff in the garage. I've taken out as much as I can. I will have a dumpster service come out tomorrow and pick the rest of it up. And he was so kind. He goes, no. My guys are going to be out there anyway to clean things out and get the house ready. I'll just take care of it. But I took a picture of this in the back. My Tahoe was slap full of stuff.
It is amazing around in the right neighborhoods. If you just put stuff out on the edge of the road, it'll be gone the next morning. Decent, furniture, whatever. It'll be gone.
So yes, we do
these things. This is the type of stuff that people don't realize that agents are dealing with on a daily basis. And if you haven't dealt with this situation, it will happen. Guaranteed. The garage full of garbage. I'm trying to remember because we kind of went off on a slight tangent, but the goal of the transaction is to be successful. What's successful? Be stressless. So what I was trying to ultimately get out of you, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is at the end of that transaction, you now have an advocate. You now have someone who's telling anyone who mentions anything about real estate, you got to call Cindy. She's the greatest. Oh my God, she did all this stuff for us. It was a breeze with her. She just made everything wonderful. Especially someone who's had a bad real estate transaction and work with you. Go, oh my God, and then they really right. So that is the end goal. So to go back through the processes that we were talking about, what is the process of making that happen, right? And I think again, the successful agents are naturally going through and going, what could I have done differently on that last transaction?
That's right.
Could I have been a little more assertive to have a better home inspector that might have done the infrared and then we wouldn't have found the mold 3 days before closing? I'm sure y'all, little things like that going on where we go, oh yeah, here, use any inspector. Here's a few. But they went with the cheapest guy. And then that had caused problems later on in the transaction type of thing. So plan, do, review, I think is the word. I forget where I picked that up at, but that is plan, do, review. You planned it, you did it, and then you got to go back to every transaction and say, how could we have done that process better? And you got to, would you agree? You pretty much got to do it on every one. And obviously your ultimate goal is, can you reach that utopia, right? That perfect transaction? Well, we can get close. I don't know if there is a perfect transaction.
Yeah, they're not. So that's where the Six Sigma comes in. It's 99.9% accurate, right?
Yeah.
I think it, and you bring up a very, very good point. So I've dealt with agents that, the ones that go above and beyond, and then the ones that, and I hate to say this,
you can look at their contract and
the truth, right? They got top 500 in whatever. And I actually mentioned this. I went to a professional, the Golden Key. It's a class on professionalism. I remember mentioning to the instructor that, I feel like as an industry, it's all about top performers are number of sales and your GCI, right? How much income did you make or how much business did you bring in? But I feel like, and they're not independently exclusive, but I feel like there has to be more effort and more focus on quality agents out there doing the best that they should be doing for their clients. As far as going back and looking at, what could I have done different? I have used vendors that may have not been the best vendors, right? So one of the things that I strive for is being a one-stop shop, right? So I'm helping you to buy a house. I look at it through the lenses of a contractor, of a construction person. I have an inspector. I have inspectors that I trust. I have lenders that I trust. It's a team. You have to be backed up by a team of individuals because from a seller buyer standpoint, when they're looking at me as an agent, they're looking at me as the person accountable for the entire beginning to end.
You are the project coordinator.
You are. That's correct. You're the everything, right? So you need to have a team that's there and focused and a team that you can depend on. And the only way to do that and the only way to provide great service is to continuously look back. What could I have done different? Should I, next time I'm going to try to do this, or always look to improve. Process improvement is an everyday thing.
Well, you brought up a topic that I've been on recently. It's been on my mind forever, but I kind of made it a point in the last couple episodes. I've been in mortgages, be 20 years in September, and really the first 12 were more in a call center environment, so weren't really building relationships with realtors. But these last 8 years, being at what they call retail, actually on the street, obviously our main source of referrals is through you guys, through agents. And the amount of agents that I've noticed who don't create the relationship. I can only bring in the analogy, it's like dating. You guys are getting called by everyone. You're getting, whether it's inspectors, lenders, whatever, they want to get your referral. But you're, as the agent, you are the project coordinator. You are in control. You're the one calling the shots of who you want to suggest, who you may not even talk about. We don't know what you're doing when you're having that meeting with that client, right? So if agents really dug down in, you should have 2 or 3 lenders, because at least 2 or 3, and always one of those who is, well, I'll use an analogy my friend Tom Reber uses, a Swiss Army knife of connections, because there are loan types that a lot of lenders don't do, like VA construction. I mean, you could probably count on your hand how many people do it in town, right? So you might not be your everyday lender that you're using because you have a great, but you know what? Yeah, Tracy at Planet does VA home construction. This is what I got. So, or maybe you got a renovation project, so we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, that this particular person specializes in that. They really focus in on that. They have whatever, different products, different options, whatever it may be, because every lender has different overlays. Some lenders don't want to take risks on doing that kind of loan, whatever it is. And I'm sure the home inspector is the same way. This is a multi-million-dollar home. This person needs to spend, I don't know what they're going for, $1,000, whatever, needs to have all the bells and whistles, right? Which I think every home, even new construction, they need to really do, have the infrared and all that stuff done too. But anyway, but you got to lean into them as much as they're leaning into you, and create that relationship that they are going to jump out there, or you're calling them for a sponsorship or whatever, that kind of thing goes on. But I find too many agents are too, I'm going to call it wishy-washy. I don't even know if that's the correct phrase, but I'm going to use that phrase, wishy-washy. They want to dance around, hey, I'm referring 3, but they never really build that strong relationship, because just like any business, and you've been, well, of course, as a real estate agent, you're self-employed, but the construction business, if someone's using you all the time, you're giving them back. You're going to cut them a little slack here. You're going to get to that job a little faster. You're going to help, hey, they have a project deadline. You're going to do whatever you can to help them meet that, because you're leaning on each other. And I don't think enough really of the top agents and the agents that are listening right now, you need to lean on these lenders. You need to lean on these home inspectors and the other ancillary services that the title companies, you need to lean on them. Title companies are making a killing out there. You don't realize how much money title companies make off these transactions. They make they make a good amount of money. You need to lean on them. You need a sponsorship. You need to lean on them. You need co-branding or whatever it is to really move your business. And that's when you create that relationship. It's like you create a best friend in business. I think that's just my little soapbox this morning. But I'm finding that more and more. And I don't think no one has interviewed as many agents as I have in town. And I can tell you it's not happening enough.
Yes, I would agree. I think a lot of my success has to do with that. And I'll just speak to my inspector. So I have an inspector, I trust him fully. I'll call him up. I don't have to go call the main office. I call him up, his cell phone, I'll text him. He's very responsive. I had him go out to do an inspection for me. He did it. The agent told me, yep, all the repairs are done, like by the next day. Of course, me being in construction, I'm like, there's no way. No way. But, so I said, hey,
would you run by?
And he did.
Yep.
And he goes, nothing's been done. And I'm like, what? So he went, I kid you not, 3 different times out there for me.
Yeah.
No additional charge, no additional fee. He does re-inspections at no cost. A lot of inspectors charge for a re-inspection.
Because that's your go-to guy.
That is my go-to, yes.
Yeah.
So,
or he becomes your go-to by earning that sometimes too.
That's exactly correct.
How many times that's helped you? Because, I just sent the inspector out, and you just told me like yesterday that everything was done. Everything is not done. That's right. And here I have a third-party validation. It's not me going out and saying that. That's And
it's a friendship.
Yes,
it turns out to be. I'm not calling. When I call him, I'm thinking more as a friendship kind of call. Hey, listen, I need your help.
Because he knows he's getting the next deal.
That's
he knows
correct.
he's getting, and he likes working with you. You probably talk him up, and he's of course he talks you up. And that type of thing. And you've created that, and then he'll run out and do those things for you. Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the things, and again, I can sit down, and I don't want to make it a lending show or anything like that, because I want to talk about more into you, but you've got to find that person, create that relationship, and again, if they can't do it, they know someone that can. That's right. The other thing, that's too. Very true. Don't think that person you're making the relationship has to do everything. If they can help you solve the problem, like, I need this unique loan. Well, we don't do it, but I know so-and-so does. Yes. Let me here's their number. Let me call them and see if they make sure they can do it. But I heard they offer that product. Whatever it is. Okay. Always like a lot of the agents I've had on, obviously everyone has a different background. We've got some young ones who practically started in college, so they didn't really have any other experience, in life. But you were the corporate America, and then of course, we didn't really get into which you could probably add into this answer, how you got into the construction and renovation part of your business, but your corporate experience and how, when working from a client from the get-go, from the phone call to, how you meet with them. That's, tell us how you do, the agents, I think some of the top agents, they like to meet face-to-face, if not a Zoom call. They want to make the face, connection, the human connection. But how your corporate America experience, when you're doing these, we were talking about, plan, do, review. When you had this transaction, how your corporate experience, how it's poured in and made your real estate interactions and experience better.
So first, as far as from a client's perspective and how I begin the process, right? I like meeting in person because there's so much value face to face. Listening, I would probably say, is the number one skill you really need to have, not only listening what's coming out of their mouth, but looking at their body language, looking at just just everything, right? It's just not the words they speak.
What is a skill you use, or I say a skill, for instance, one of my things for the podcast was, of course, my wife tells me I don't listen, right? Mm-hmm. So ever since I started the show, my focus is, right, we put our phones on do not disturb. I'm focusing on your answer without interrupting you. Because a lot of times in conversations, you're saying stuff, the thought comes in my head and I want to spill it right back out and you haven't finished your thought.
Right.
And people do that all the time and start interrupting each other, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you do? Like, for instance, that's why I have the notepad here. I'll write, while you're talking, I'm writing something down so I can then return my focus back to you. What are some of the things a skill that you try to concentrate on when you're actually listening to someone? Because I know when as we all do, we're hearing someone talk and we think we know the answer already, but we have to suppress that.
Right.
What are some of the things you do to really, focus on and let them know you're focused on?
So, again, the body language, if I'm speaking with you and I'm sitting like this,
the arms crossed, right? Yeah.
Just nonchalant versus me sitting up like I'm doing right now with you. This whole time I've been.
Yep, that's
whole time I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Is I'm sitting like this. I look you in the eye.
Yep.
I'm not looking around. I'm not distracted. I am notorious for writing things down. I will write. I'm a writer. So
you're taking notes while they're talking.
I'm taking notes. I'm making lists, mental notes as well. I think also help making them feel at ease, right? So it's a whole personality thing.
The body language does a lot of that.
Yes, where they trust you. And that's the thing that gets me about real estate. You can go to the pre-licensing course and you can take all these courses, but what is not taught is your innateness in dealing with people. Mm-hmm. Because every transaction is not about, I just have to sell a house, or, I just have to buy a house. There's a story. There is a story of why they're selling or why they're buying. And I'm going to tell you some of the situations that there was a situation where I met with my client and I can tell there's sadness. Again, I'm watching her. Mm-hmm. She's not saying she's sad, but I can see there's something behind. And I got to the question about, so why are you wanting to move where you're at? They were renting, move where you're at and buy a home. Mm-hmm. And what she told me took me aback. And I tried not to let that show.
Right.
But the sadness I was seeing was that her son almost died in the home that they're in. She was able to revive him. And that's why they were looking in her,
bad memories
in
and
her urgency. Mm-hmm. Yes, she goes, I can't go into that room anymore. And that put a totally different perspective to me as an agent on how I was going to work that transaction. Mm-hmm. Completely different. And then it got to where she was really getting desperate. Like, it was back when the market was insane, where people were paying crazy money. And she was VA. It was VA. Nobody, for whatever reason, were excluding VA as a financing option, that the seller, you know what I mean?
People should be sued for that.
It was sad. And me, as a veteran's daughter, added just another layer of like, really?
Yeah.
But we got super creative. She was going to, there was houses, there were nightmare homes. I said, well, okay, so I had to stop and pause several times for her and say, okay, you're wanting to put an offer on this house. This is not the house for you. I know it's not the house for you. I said, it's desperation because you want to get out of this one for emotional reasons. Whatever.
Right.
I said, let me try one more thing. And what I did is I went to Facebook. Looking for 3-bedroom, 2 baths, VA friendly. Mm-hmm. And I'll be darned if that day we did not get someone from my Facebook page said, you know what, I got married several years ago. We rented our house, my husband's military. Mm. We rented the house. We were just about to put it on the market. Contacted that person. The funny thing, God has...
Yeah,
I'm very religious.
I'm with you.
Religious, and I thought God has a way of doing things.
Yep.
The funny thing was, the two of my buyer and the seller all knew each other from the same place, the gym that the buyer owned.
Right.
So it was like connecting the dots. So I guess when you're saying about, what skills are used, so just reading people, back in corporate world, you go into a meeting, you have to read that room, and you better read it well, and who's in there, why they're in there, what their goal is, what do they have an agenda, type of thing. So that's one. I think the other thing too is you have to be very strict with your time, right? So tomorrow I already know what my day looks like. I already know what's on my plate. Working with people, that gives them a sense of this person's got their act together. They know what they're doing, their structure, they have a plan, so those are all things that I learned within the corporate world, right? In having plans, having goals. I don't think agents have goals. I don't think we do a good job of sitting down and saying, okay, what are my goals for the next 30 days, the next 60 days, the next year, 5 years out? What's my goal?
I think that, it's not just agents. I think that is, I get to think about myself, because what it does is when you put your goal out, you have to reverse engineer your goal, right? All right, I want to do X amount in sales. Well, that means, what do you got to do that? Well, I got to make so many contacts. Okay, well, I got to do how many days I got. So I'm going to make so many. So it actually sets up your schedule and starts in doing that. And that's where I think that's why they don't bother with the goal, because, I guess, the why and all that in there. But I want to go a circle back to, you were being empathetic, right? That person had that tragedy in their house, and your empathy, right? Which I'm probably the worst at. It's not that I don't care. I just don't express it or I don't probe into. Now I'll probe in their financials. Hey, where's that money coming from? That's right. Kind of thing. But when you hear someone tell you a story that they really don't have to tell you, because it's a personal story, but they're opening up, and a lot of times they just met you. They haven't even, they're telling you something, and sometimes they don't even tell their best friend they've known forever, or even their mom or sister or something, but they're opening up to you. Do you ever step back and why are they telling me this? Because she didn't really have to tell you that.
Right.
So
a comment I get a lot is, you're so personable. You walk into a room and you just have a way of making people feel comfortable. And I get that a lot. It's quite interesting because I don't try. It's just my being.
Natural.
It's just my natural. I am a very empathetic person. I mean, I've cried with people. I've laughed with people. First-time home buyers are my favorite, because as I'm handing them the keys, I'm almost in tears.
Right.
Just because I'm so joyous for them, because I know what this means.
Right.
Because I've been there. But I'm genuine. I don't put up a front. I don't pretend I'm perfect, because Lord knows I'm not. I'm a husband. I'm very genuine. At the end of the day, I'm there to help solve a problem. I'm there to help a client achieve a goal. For whatever reason they have that goal, or whatever reason they're wanting to do what they're doing, right? I've got someone right now in St. Johns County. Hey, you want to come have dinner with us? It's her and her two daughters. I'm like,
right.
I had another one invited me to her wedding. Another person invited me to
That's flattering, isn't it?
The son's graduation. Yeah. You become, and to your point, and I have thought about this. I think to myself, what is it? What is that quality that I have? But then I don't question it, because I'm like, whatever it is, I'm doing it. Right. Again, it's just genuine, but I really believe that the main thing is I come, and when I meet with you, I sit and have a conversation, let's just have a cup of coffee and chat. I had someone in Lake City. I went and met with her in person. I didn't want to do an over the phone, introductory thing. Now, she was a referral, so the person that referred her knew me very well. And I kid you not when I tell you, we sat there for about an hour and a half before we even started talking about listing her home. She had so much baggage and so much to just get off. When I got to she texted me, hey, when you come in through the garage door. I'm like, okay. Well, when I come in, the house is dark. And I'm like, where are you? She goes, just come over to my bedroom. She was in a dark room. The TV was on. She had a recliner that I don't think she ever moved out of.
She was handicapped in a way, or
she had gotten, her husband left her. She was getting divorced. She loved her home. And it got to the point that she had to sell her home.
Yeah.
Which is why I was there. She was just in a point of depression.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So as a realtor, you're also somewhat of a counselor.
Oh, yeah.
But what I find is if you just listen, again, circle back to the very first thing, listen, there's so much more there. And I'm not a probing person, especially when it comes to personal stuff. I'll probe all there is I need to about the home. What are you looking for? What size? What square footage? What neighborhood? All of that. But I've just never been, which is odd because being an empathetic person, you would think I would ask personal, but we just have conversations. So how's it going? And one thing leads to another. Before you know, they've done spilled.
In sales, when you're actually trying to sell a product, whether you're selling a car or a bed or whatever it is, where they can get somewhere else, but you're trying to close them. You're trying to close that person right there in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. You listen for buying signs. You listen for things that you can. It's not a negative thing, but real estate's a little different. You're not trying to close that person right there and then. Now, obviously, maybe if you're competing to try to get the listing agreement or something like that. But if you're listening, a lot of times they're telling you what you need to show them, what they're still missing before they can say, yes, I'm ready to buy, right? Mm-hmm. But would you agree in real estate, probably 90% of the listening to it is really to the long-term goal of winning this advocate. I think we were talking about goals a little bit. I don't think enough agents have long-term goals. They're in the business and they're really only thinking 30 to 90 days in advance is about it. When the realization that person in front of you is a billboard that you're going to have walking around for who knows how long. What good can you paint this billboard and make it look great? And that everybody driving up and down that person's street is going to know that Cindy is their real estate agent. And Cindy's the best real estate agent. That person's just out there. Yep. Every barbecue, they're telling about Cindy, right? Or anyone brings up real estate. And I think, like you said, the being empathetic and listening, I think if we probably did a test or were a fly on the wall to all the great agents, they are all doing that because they have the reason why their business is blown up is because they have all these walking billboards all over the place of all their past clients.
That's correct. I'm going to tell you over half my business now, referrals.
Yeah.
Over half my business are referrals. And I just got one this weekend. It was someone I worked with, not to get off topic, but the other thing is staying top of mind, right? So social media.
Yeah.
So I just had.
Well, you got to keep reminding the billboards that you're still here.
Yes. So,
you can't talk to them all the time.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I just got one this weekend where this person who I used to work with a long time ago contacted me several years ago and said, hey, listen, so I live in this property and the person next to me has this property. And I forgot exactly how the scenario went, but he wanted to see what information I can find out about the property because he wanted to try to offer to buy it. It wasn't for sale, but you wanted to offer to buy it. So again, I'm not looking, and can't believe I'm going to say this, but this is truth. I wasn't looking like, I got to snag this person so I can get him to buy this property. I provided value. I went, upped information, told him what I was able to find, gave him my perspective on the best way to handle what he was trying to do. And that was that. Mm-hmm. Well, he decided not to purchase, but guess what? I created in the meantime, because I did provide value. He contacted me this week. Hey, listen, so there's this guy that I worked with at Blue Cross long ago. He's looking to sell his house. I gave him your contact information. So I didn't have a transaction with the person, the initial person, but I provided value. To me, it's about providing value. Those walking, you're absolutely right, walking billboards. Like I said, most of my business now, over half is referrals. And referrals not just from people you've done business with in the past, but people that see you on social media and see how authentic you are, see that you're getting results, see your personality.
Yes.
Right? Because, like on social media right now, I have a company that will, and there are companies out there that will post for you. I do not like it. I literally cut it down to one post a week for them to do for me.
Yeah.
Because that's not authentic.
No, it's not.
I put on a video of me helping a client or of me, whatever, something personal.
Yeah. Yeah,
blows out of the water.
Because there's the ads have increased on all the social media platforms. I mean, you go on, you say whether I don't care TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. The ad revenue, they've got so many people now. They're engaged in that phone, and they're looking at it, and they're throwing so many ads in there. And if you throw an ad like thing, which a lot of that I think to me, people could say see this static post. They're like, I mean, they just see it as an ad. I mean, you might not even really be considered an ad, but that's what they see it. Now it's you and your face and you're saying something, or maybe your picture behind it with some sort of statement. They're stopping and actually going, oh, that's them.
They can relate.
Yeah,
yes,
they can relate.
And a thought just popped into my mind when you were talking about the corporate world, how it's helped me in real estate. The one thing that I never thought about in the beginning when I first became a realtor, but I have been using it tremendously, is data, right? So when you're a Six Sigma, Black Belt Six Sigma, it's all about data, right? So I had a home that I was listing, and I thought to myself, where can I get data around this as far as casting a wider net for potential buyers? So I went and did research because data, right? I went and did research, and I said, okay, and this is what people were really moving to Florida. I said, okay, so let's think about from what state are
right? They're moving, yeah.
Right? New York was number 1. California was number 2.
Yeah.
New Jersey, forgot what the other 2. So then I said, I'm going to do a very targeted marketing to New York, to California, and to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure there's agents that do that. I was thinking, again, more from a corporate data. How can I have data work for me to be more effective?
I don't think enough are doing it, actually. You really are the first person I can say, if maybe one other person that I've ever had on that said, hey, I'm using targeted face, and it's inexpensive. And they're not even doing it in the neighborhoods. In the greatest agents that are out there, I've had Krista Mashore on. She's a funnel person. She's running targeted ads to neighborhoods because she wants to own those neighborhoods. She has 5 or 6. Actually, I think her brother runs real estate now because she's running the marketing side. But she targets everybody. So it went from the old postcards, because everyone's like, well, you know what? Those old postcards. If you kept sending them out every whatever quarter, month, or whatever, and for years, you got deals off it. They paid for themselves. Trust me, they paid for themselves. But you got to be consistent. Now the modern age is doing Facebook targeted ads. So everybody in that neighborhood is seeing your face and your listing, and I've got another one over here, and you're doing it. But you got to do it consistently. It can't be just a one stop. Everyone's into the instant gratification. Tell us a little bit about the construction and the renovation business that you have, and then obviously how you're working that into the real estate, or how one works off each other.
So I leverage my construction a lot. Again, I really try.
I assume your husband is the construction side. Am I right?
No,
he's not. Okay, all right.
That is funny because I get that a lot.
Yeah, because there is a lot of those around where they're the husband or boyfriend or whatever.
Leave it up to me to be unconventional. No, actually, when I wanted to move from Riverside to Jacksonville Beach, I saw someone on social media and was following them. They were construction, and I contacted them to come do my repairs for me, to get the house ready and come to do my repairs.
Okay.
And this is how I actually got into construction. So as we're chatting, I had the opportunity to leave corporate world. I had this chunk of money that I got, and I thought, what have you always wanted to do? I've always wanted to invest in properties. So I told them, I said, listen, so I want to buy houses, and this is before I became a realtor. I want to buy houses. Can I hire you to do the improvements, and then I'll sell it, and then I'll buy another one? He goes, yeah, but actually, I do that. I said, no. He goes, yeah. I said, matter of fact, I bought one, paid cash for the house, but now I don't have the funds to do the renovations. Can I show it to you? Sure. He goes and shows it to me. I said, how much do you need? He told me. And I said, okay. So as we're going to the bank for me to invest, I was going to be an investor, to invest in it. He goes, you know what? I was about to close shop. He's with the fire department. And he goes, I'm about to close shop. This is, like a hobby for me. And I don't have the business background, yada, yada. He said, I see you have an MBA. He kind of did his homework on me.
Yes.
He goes, I see you have an MBA, and I see you've been in corporate forever. Would you be interested in partnering with me? And I thought by partnering, he meant like hiring me to consult. No, he literally signed over half of the business to me.
Right.
So then what I did, I brought on the business side, right, with an
Right.
MBA. I did all the basics, got all that settled, and then I worked for like 3 months to get that done. Then on 1/1 of whatever year it was, I became part owner. So I would go to job sites, loved it, loved going to job sites and actually working, not like I had a lot of skills, but I felt like I was
Contributing.
Yeah. So absolutely loved it. My family couldn't believe it because they're like, this is how my family knows me.
Right.
They don't know me with my hair up, sweating with work boots on or whatever.
Right.
And I loved it. Anyhow, so we hired an agent to sell that home once it was done. And in the meantime, I had bought another one and we started working there. So I'm learning as I'm going, right? Next thing I know, I was like, wait a minute, why don't I become my own agent? We can, reinvest the commission piece of it.
Right.
So that's how I got involved. But I loved real estate so much that I talked to my business partner. And I'm going to say the reason it works, he's not my husband, but the reason it works is we both bring a lot to the table. And I respect him for what he brings and he respects me for what I bring.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the yin to the yang type
Yeah.
thing. He calls me the buzzkill because he always, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And I'm thinking liability. Buzzkill. I'm like, okay, but hey, we're not being sued for anything. But anyhow, so I ended up becoming a realtor, buying and selling our own homes. And to get back to your question, sorry, I kind of diverted.
No, that's all right. No, that was perfect. That we need to know that.
So when I came around to it, I can take a client to a home and I'll tell them, like there was a situation, somebody, they love the home. And I said, guys, again, the buzzkill. Not that I want to be a buzzkill, but I said, guys, they loved it. We're out in the backyard. I said, do y'all notice anything about the backyard? No. And I said, if you look, the main road is right here, and then the yard slopes down, and then you have your house.
The water runoff.
I said, the water's going to run off. It's going to come set against your foundation. That's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That is a customer for life. I talked them out of buying a house.
Yeah.
First of all, and they know that my best interest is them. I will talk you out of buying a house if it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you 2 or 3 times now. You still want to buy it? Then it's on you.
Well, then we need to put a big French drain in. Something.
So I did. I explained that. I said, you can do a sump pump. You can do this. You can do that. And they're like, yeah, no. We ended up finding another home that I absolutely loved. But because I look at things through the lens of a contractor, and because I've been burned a couple of times on my own properties, right?
Yeah.
That's how I
Bought a couple money pits. Yeah.
Structural. I bought this house where it was off grade and the kitchen floor kind of sloped. I'm like, oh, that's not a problem. I'll just float the floor. This was my second home, so it was early on. I'll just float the floor, not a problem. Well, inspection came in, got up underneath, and they're like, yeah, so that beam up underneath needs to be replaced because what's causing the floor to slope was there was water damage.
And wood got soft.
And
Yeah.
$8,000 less at the closing table. I was out. Never make that mistake again. So now I'm
Yeah.
looking for structural. So I've learned a lot, but I add a lot of value. The other one is when people want to buy a home and they'll say, how much do you think it would be to remodel this kitchen or remodel this bathroom or to do this or to do this? And I have those numbers in my head because I do it every day, right?
Yeah.
Which helps inform them on whether or not they want to buy and what an appropriate offer price would be.
Well, I really think that's a talent. Not every agent, unfortunately, can have that, or because obviously you're experiencing it at real lifetime. But there's so many homes out there, and from what I understand right now, a lot of buyers, they want turnkey.
Yes.
They don't want to go, what can I make of this house? If I buy it, it needs to be updated. It's a little older, so we need to do the bathrooms, need to do the kitchen, maybe over time, maybe before they even move in. And obviously, we're out here as a lender. We're promoting renovation products. We got all these renovation products, all these renovation loans that they can do, but people aren't getting into them because there's still opportunity. There's so much more upswing when you're able to get into that house that needs a little bit of work. And if you can do some on your own, obviously you can sweat equity, and then but you can borrow money to get the contractor to come in and really do the fine tunes and really build some equity wealth in their home in just a matter of just a few short years, no matter what the market is.
Right.
Really. And so you having the eyes for that when you walk into a house, say, this is the location you want. It's got this, it's got that. There's only one address with this dirt. Everything's great. Yeah. The kitchen, or maybe we need to move this wall out so you can have a bigger closet or whatever like that. You already can kind of spill into them. It's not that big of a deal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a buyer and she absolutely insisted that it have a carport.
Because it didn't have anything at all?
Well, whatever house, any house that she looked at,
had to have a carport.
It has to have a carport.
Not a garage, a carport.
A carport or a garage, either one.
Okay.
But I had asked her, she was more into the carport though, but I had asked her, I said, so, what's driving that? She goes, well, I want
question.
to make it, right? I want to make it into an apartment. I want to be able to turn it into additional living space, into an apartment where I can, charge rent, blah, 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 but I can still live in the house. So we ended up finding one for her, and the other day, it made me so happy. The other day, she sends me a video, and she says, hi, and she was a Spanish speaker, too, so Spanish. I posted it, but I kind of had to do a translation so people could understand what she was saying. But anyway, she videoed the front of the house where she had gotten it painted, made it real pretty. She had landscaping. Then she came around now this one was a carport that had been quasi transformed already. So she goes, so I wanted to share this with you because you knew my vision when we were looking.
Yeah.
And that made me feel so happy, right? So she opens it and she goes, so we designed it the way you recommended. We extended this, we moved this, we did this, we're going to do this. And she's probably, I want to say about 60% done with it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those situations that I was able to help her envision. Now, inside of the house itself did need some work, but this was her bigger driver, right? But she just sent me a video, I want to say maybe a month ago, saying, look, I just want to show you,
And this is an off-the-wall question. You may not have any comment on it, but I imagine being in construction, and I think, as you know, the affordability of homes is down. California is doing a big thing on the accessory dwelling unit. You read
yes.
Those opportunities are out there. And then obviously working with someone like you as an agent can find the right home, obviously understand the zoning. Can we go above that garage? Whatever, that thing is, or, hey, there's that detached garage out here. What can we do with that? If we got a renovation loan and we put a mother-in-law suite on top of that, the possibilities that are there, because I think you go up to say, I've lived in Michigan, that's all over the place. And especially in small town America, the accessory dwelling units are there because the young people there's no apartment complexes. So they need there. And then apartment complexes are not cheap. We have such a demand, affordable house. The apartments are high too. And then, of course, obviously thinking from a homeowner standpoint, as obviously this lady, I'm sure, was thinking, she was offsetting her cost of that home with renting that accessory dwelling unit out.
Yep, she was a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
What's one thing? It was just her and her children, right? So very limited income, and that's what was driving her decision. And it was interesting too that this person, I started working with her 2 years prior, but we could not get her finance. She had but I kept in touch with her. The lender said, these are the things you need to fix. And she was serious. She went and did exactly what they told her. And, here
those are great
later.
people. You love working with people like that. They take your advice and they go at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little, I'm going to say it's a little scary because people, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You're like, well, what is it about you that makes people just open up? Mm-hmm. The other thing that I've noticed as a realtor, and I told this to my husband the other day, I said, it's astonishing to me how trusting people are. And I don't think...
They're thirsting for it.
Yes.
It's the sand. Gosh. You're the water on their sand, and they're thirsting for someone they can trust in.
Yes.
And as you said, these other people have made comments about, when you come in the room, or that figure that they immediately are able to show that it has integrity and so forth, and they can trust in you.
Yes, and I'm not going to say burden, a big responsibility, right? So if my game's here, when that person's trusting you explicitly 100% with everything, I find a way to get here for that client.
Yeah.
because you cannot let them down.
Yeah.
It's a huge responsibility. And that was, again, one of the things that I didn't really think about before I was an agent, right? People think agents open houses. No, that's not what we do. There's a lot that we do.
Well, there's
right?
this, I'm sure you can relate this to your corporate world. People have to rely on other people to do things for them. I mean, they're not construction, renovation, have an eye for that or whatever. It's not their field. Just don't do it. But in corporate America, as you had a project to be done, whether you were the leader of the project or you were one of the troops executing the project, they had to rely on you and you had to rely on them that they're going to go do their job. And until they prove you differently, right? And I think in the home buying process is just an example. There are people that openly admit that they don't want to act like they are smart enough not to go ask their father-in-law for advice if they're not in the business, right? Yeah. They understand you as the professional because you've come across that way and that trusting, and they give themselves to you, say, help me buy a home. What do I need to do? And that to me is one of the most, flattering, but lack of better words, of, inspiration. I think that high that you get when people really put their trust in you, and then it does put a little bit of pressure. You want to go above and beyond, but it's a good adrenaline rush. I want to kind of wind up with this. There's something that I'm working on deep. I've said it several times. I've got using AI right now with all the transcripts. I want to put a book together with all the guests that I've had on, in all the stories where people come from. Obviously, I've got a chapter for all my Puerto Rico is not a non-U.S. citizen, but
I get you. It's
you're close.
Almost.
but I know I don't know if you know Jocelyn. She grew up in Puerto Rico. She actually was born in New York, but she moved to Puerto Rico when she was an infant, and her family's from Puerto Rico. She didn't know English when she came to the States. You were learning English where the school you were going to. So not everyone was being taught the same thing in Puerto Rico, right? But anyway, grit is the term I want to come out. If you ever read Grit by Angela Duckworth, I've mentioned on the show, but it's a great book. But I feel real estate agents really have a level of grit because there is opening that garage door. And when you open that garage door and you saw all that trash in there, you probably wanted to punch a hole in the wall at the moment, right? You might have even screamed. But that thought went through there, but then you dug in and you understood this is, hey, all right, but this is what's got to happen and we got to do it. But you've been probably, fell on your face, punched in your gut, corporate America, but obviously we're talking about it in real estate or even some of the money pits, and the renovations. Oh my God, I found out something, but you chalked it up to learning and you moved on. But I imagine a flash of why am I doing it came across your screen.
Yeah. No, right. As long as I'm making, I'm in the plus. Yeah. And I do love it. I love real estate. I love everything about real estate.
Well, I'm gonna ask you that question here directly. I'm gonna ask you a question. So I believe, my listeners know, I believe you have to have an LLC to get through it. And that's not a limited liability company, although you may need to have that. You need to have love. You need to be able to laugh. And then you need to be consistent. So my 3 questions, the first one is the easy one, as you're leading into. Why do you love real estate?
From different aspects, but I would probably say, because investments is a different reason why I love that versus why I love being a realtor, right? So from being a realtor is, like when I worked at Blue Cross, right? I worked my way up through the company. I was satisfied, and I felt like I had a passion up to a certain point. And then after that, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I mean, I don't love what I'm doing. I did a great job, right? Just because.
That's just you.
Just the way I am. But I'm like, I'm not really making a difference because I wasn't working with customers face to face. I was behind the scenes, right?
Right.
With real estate, you're making a difference to people's lives.
And you're seeing that instant reaction.
That is, yes, that is my passion. I also get a high when, like in negotiations, I consider myself to be a very strong negotiator. And it's like, okay, I already have a plan. We're going to do this. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to.
And when that plan executes, it's like being a coach. You describe a play, and when that play works, like, yes.
So, but those are my 2, I'm going to say the 2 biggest thrills and the passion behind it. Investments, the money's great, the profit, but I love seeing a house. Right now we're doing one in Springfield. It's 100 years old. I am ecstatic about getting started on this because it's like
you can see what it's going to look.
The potential of this home. My dream was to go into an underdeveloped area and remodel the entire neighborhood. That's my dream. But the big investors come in and start buying them. But I'm like, okay,
well, they have the same vision too. They understand what they're doing. Mm-hmm. One house at a time or whatever. They are slowly transitioning that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are my two number one reasons.
All right. This one throws off the laughter part. And I take this from my own personal life experiences and grit. And I look back at times where I have fallen on my face, punched in the gut, or like, oh my God, can I overcome this mountain, right? Mm-hmm. And today we look back in our career and we laugh at those moments. Mm-hmm. Can you, preferably if there was something in real estate, even in your renovations, where you hit this, something just really negative happened and you had to take that step. You took that step back and you're like, oh my God, I can't, why is this happening? Why, he's doing it for a reason, right? Yeah. I have to believe that. Right. So we took that step back, or maybe, like you said, it's real estate for me. And then you shook it off and drove on. Mm-hmm. And now today you laugh about, and when similar situations happen, because they consistently happen in our lives, mm-hmm. he throws us another curveball and we overcome it. Can you think of a situation you've had where really kind of set you, knocked you to your knees, so to speak? You said, now you laughed it off because you look back at all the things you've accomplished in your life and how many times you have been set back and you've overcame and you're at where you're at, that, he might have just knocked the wind out of you for that moment, mm-hmm. but you moved on.
I can't really think of anything, and the reason I say that is, in corporate you had scorecards, right? Mm-hmm. You had all your goals, all your metrics, right? And they were either red or green. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was brought up in a culture where they say embrace the red. Right? Because if you don't...
They have a different term for it, but yeah. Okay.
They call it embrace it right now. Whether or not they really... not whether or not, no, they didn't. It was like one of those things.
I think the Navy SEALs, they call it embrace the suck.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All the things that suck.
Yeah, so this embrace the red was... The theory behind it was you fall down, you got a red, right? You didn't meet a metric. Just move on. What can I learn from it? How can I make it better? And you move on. So I've never been, and we all fail. Social media gives you a different, and that's how I'm going to say that I had to work on. Because I would see these
you embraced
people,
it.
They do this and this and this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just absolutely suck. Because I'm comparing. But then I thought, well, hold on a minute. This is social media. No one tells of their red.
Yeah,
right? No one tells what didn't go well. It's the positives.
Right.
And I'm going to say, I also have someone at home, my husband, who is a very, very strong Christian. And he's the type of person where he's a man of few words, unlike me, a man of few words, but very practical. And he's like, Cindy, what happened? Did you learn something from it? Move on. Just like that. And so I think just between having someone that's like an anchor for me at home and that supports me no matter what, and just growing up in corporate America, just failure is going to happen. There's, being upset or sulking or, oh man, doesn't help. What helps is, okay, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. As like I said, that if you listen to the Navy SEALs and all those guys, they embrace the suck. That's so you'll hear them actually use that phrase.
I like that a lot better than
play through the foul, because you can relate it to sports. When I'm coaching my son's basketball team, you missed a shot, play on.
That's right.
It is not over. Now, if you go, no one cares if you missed a shot and you run and get your own rebound. They forget you missed the shot. Mm-hmm. If you missed the shot, go down and stop them on defensively and come back with the ball, they forget about that you missed the shot. Mm-hmm. But if you miss the shot and put your head down and mope and, blah, 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 back up, next play. It's the next play. And I think that's the attitude you have. It's the next play. You're not out. Just because you got a red doesn't mean you're out.
That's right.
Because that would really, I could see some people really getting impressed. If they did something that, cost them their job or something, whatever it is, or they lost a deal or something, that's something, you might want to get up. But even if they lost a deal and you're still walking and talking and, you still have food on the table that night, next. And I think that's what I'm reading is the attitude that they have there. And that is really, if you, again, personal development and everything, that's what all the top people say. fail, fail, fail. They'll tell you, keep failing, keep failing, keep failing. Fail forward.
Fail fast.
Fail forward.
Fast,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, because look, look at... I
Fail fast forward.
Right. I love sports. Look at Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his stats? Insane.
Yeah.
He's like, I lost at this, I lost at this, I lost this. All these bad things. I never knew anything about that.
Right.
Until I saw his biography or read his book.
Right. He talks, there's that phrase, how many shots he missed. He scored all these points, so how many shots did he have to take to get
correct.
those scores up?
Yeah. That's an example of exactly what you're talking about, right?
Because if someone shoots in the MBA, if they shoot 50% from the floor, they're awesome. People don't realize this. If you actually look at the stats, but they've got to drive on, and it's the next play, it's the next shot, it's the next thing. And then so the C in my LLC is consistency. What would you say, and specifically about being a real estate agent and the clients that you're working in, handling buyers and sellers and so forth? What do you think you're doing consistently? And then this may adjust over time, and probably has. I think again because you're always planning, doing, and reviewing, right? You're always going back and looking at what you did and improve. But what do you think is one of the consistent things that you're doing, whether it's on a daily, weekly basis in your marketing or just in your business, that you think moves the needle for you?
So from a consistency, I would say there's a couple of things. One is continuous education. You've got to continuously keep up to date on the laws, on technology. So it's just every single day, every day.
Yep. The
other thing, and probably just as important, is staying in contact with your sphere, with your clients. Whether it's, I have my CRM, I've got them A, B, C, D, right? They're categorized. My A's is...
hot to trot. They're ready to buy now or sell now.
But everyone in my CRM will be touched a minimum of once a quarter, right? So like my D's will be once a quarter, everybody else is, more often. So I think being consistent in your communications, consistent in your processes, right?
Right.
You have to standardize, again, my continuous improvement.
Yeah.
You have to standardize your processes, being consistent you have to show up. You have to show up every single day.
Well, I think you were talking about the processes. There's no way to measure what to improve if you aren't measuring what you're doing. So if you are, like you said, hey, A's are called once a week, B's are called every other week, C's or D's are called every quarter, whatever it is. And you're making those calls, my business isn't moving forward, or I'm getting a lot of business. Where am I getting a lot of those? Getting a lot of referrals from my B's.
Right.
And I'm contacting, maybe I need move my D's up to B's or to a C and contact him one extra time a quarter.
Right.
You can't measure that. You can't do that unless you have some sort of consistency or regimen to go back every period of time, whatever it is, every quarter, every month, or whatever it is, to measure. Go, where's that business coming from?
Yes, and it's interesting, actually, that you're saying that, because one of the things that I not necessarily struggle, and I think all agents deal with, is where do you put your marketing dollars, right? So I kid you not, once a month, when I'm doing my, comparing expenses to my budget, I say, okay, well, I did this, and I've done it for 6 months, and I really haven't gotten any leads. Strike that out. Where am I going to put those funds? Right. And then the ones where I have gotten leads, that's where I'm going to
put more money into it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm constantly, again, from a consistency standpoint, I'm always looking at my marketing, what's working, what's not working, what's effective, what's not effective. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, as a realtor is we are inundated. Everybody's coming to you.
You want to be in this magazine?
We can do this. We can do this. Let me tell you what I've done with that. The last person that called me, I said, what's your performance guarantee? Or what? I said, performance guarantee.
Right.
What's a performance guarantee? I said, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. What are you going to guarantee me?
Right.
No one ever has it. Oh, more visibility. I said, okay, I don't need more visibility. You're paying a lot of money.
You have to decide whether you're doing it for charity. Maybe, the school wants you to advertise in this program or something. That's charity. If you get a call off your banner on the school fence, that's icing on the cake.
That's correct. Yep.
Next year, you're going to buy it next year because you got a lead. And if you could, and they can't guarantee it. It's charity. You have to chart it off. I'm giving to the school If I get a lead, great. No, but if I don't get a lead, that doesn't care because I'm giving the money to school because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And which, one of the things that I do, closing gifts, right? You go to closing, you give your client a gift. Well, that was so nerve-wracking to me because I'm like, I don't know what to buy people. I'm a horrible gift giver. I'm just going to say it out there. Horrible. And I thought, instead of getting people something that I don't even know they're even going to like, do you know what I did? Every single one of my clients, as we get closer to closing, about a week before, I said, listen, so I donate a portion of my commission off of this transaction to different organizations, to different charities, and I always do it to whoever my client wants me. I always let my client select who they want the donations to go to. So I've done Canine for Warriors, I've done the breast cancer, I've done a lot of.
Right.
So the other thing too, as far as being a realtor, it gives me an opportunity by doing this to give back to the community.
Yeah.
And not only to the community, but to the organizations that my clients really believe in.
Right. Well, as a real estate agent, I've said numerous times, they are the pinnacle of our housing industry, which is big part of our economy, our GDP. Housing is, because when you build a house, there's so many different, or even just moving.
Yes.
People are buying new appliances, they're doing this, buying new furniture, whatever. All these things are happening, and it's the real estate agent that's actually the pinnacle of it. So the community has to be one of the top things that the real estate agent needs to be concerned with. I want to finish because we're going to go to an AI lunch and learn here in a little bit and talk about using AI for home search. But you mentioned, all these different things to do. And a lot of agents are probably, oh my God, that's just one more thing I got to do. Well, let me tell you what, I'm working on a project right now with the podcast, taking every transcript. And actually what it is, this gentleman who's actually doing this AI seminar said, you should have a bot on your website where people who want to be a real estate agent or are a real estate agent want advice, because you have all this content, 269 episodes of real estate agents pouring in all their information, and they can go on the bot and do it. I'm like, okay. He kind of gave me the idea, and then I went to ChatGPT to say, how can I create this bot? What do I need to do? Well, we need to create this metadatabase. Well, how do you do it? Well, we need to upload the transcript, and then it's creating this metadata spreadsheet for me. So it knows the spreadsheets behind it. It knows where to go to get the transcript. It knows where to go and get. So it gave me the columns that it needs. Well, it wants to know, obviously, what episode, who the guest was, the title of the podcast, the transcript. It wants the YouTube link. It wants the Apple Podcast link, what brokerage they work for, blah, blah, blah. It gives all these columns that I need on the spreadsheet. I don't need to go to the spreadsheet and actually cut and paste and cut and paste and cut and paste. I can go in to ChatGPT, said, I need to create this spreadsheet. I'm doing this marketing. This is what I'm doing. And these are the things I want information on. Is there other information you think we should do? And it'll give you suggestions. But you don't have to sit there and pull up the spreadsheet and fill in the blanks all the time. You just need to. Now, I will say this. When you update the spreadsheet, ChatGPT, you say, okay, give me the link to the updated spreadsheet, and we'll give you the link, save that link. Because if days go by, weeks go by, and you go back and say, hey, I want to add to that spreadsheet, it's going to say, oh, yeah, we kind of reset everything. So you still have it. You'll say, here it is. Here's the last version we had. I need you to add, I had a new client. Sally, this is what we did, whatever information you want to do. And you just keep adding to it. And it'll fill in all those blanks for you by you just telling it the story. You don't have to sit there and make sure every block is filled in. So you want to start tracking, start using AI and let it track that stuff for you. Then go back and have it evaluate it, have it create graphs for you, whatever it is, so you can actually look at it and say, what am I doing in my business? Hey, I've been doing this. Here's my advertising campaigns. And then you start filling in where the customer came from. It'll analyze the data and tell you exactly where to spend your money. So AI is there.
Incredible.
Yes, it is. It is incredible. And of course, we can go on. That's a whole nother subject. But I appreciate you coming on today.
You're very welcome.
It was a great show. We could definitely talk for hours. But I think some of the bottom line thing that I think hopefully anyone listening is you go back to that listening. And listening and being empathetic. And then obviously your corporate background, I can't teach everybody that one. But I think if people have questions to reach out to you, or maybe they are running on some renovations. If you're out there and you don't have a construction company, let alone a full house construction or a renovation expert, call on Cindy, because she can help you from a realtor's eyes go in and maybe teach you some of these things, and then maybe attach to your renovation company. Say, hey, Cindy, you taught me these things. These people want to do that bathroom. Cool. Can your company come over and give me a bid on that? Well, and things start to happen, but you got to collaborate.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.